If the Doradic seal and activation of Stargate 6 was initiated and just left at that, it would kill most people on the planet. It would create total deterioration over a few years of the immune system and all the body systems, because the body could not hold that amount of frequency that rapidly. Now, if the Guardians are going to intervene and try to get the place back, they're not going to do it and then let everybody get wiped out anyway. They wouldn't do it unless there was something that could be done about that. And this is where the twinning event comes in. We'll talk more about the details of the twinning, because it's kind of complicated, tomorrow. The twinning comes down to a very personal reality that some people know about and most people don't. That when we incarnate from the higher levels, from density 2, and we come down into density 1, we come in something called a 12 clock, or a cycle of 12 simultaneous incarnations placed in various different time vectors within the same Earth cycle, different time periods, but in the same cycle. We come in with something called a twin, a gender twin, which is ourself, but in the opposite gender of what we are here. Now, most people, unless you happen to be indigos, I'll tell you about most people first. Most people come in with their gender twin, but they don't run in one given lifetime. They will not run into their gender twin in every lifetime. Only in the last lifetime before ascension. They will meet their gender twin, and they're like those, sometimes there's those like love at first sight, just, you know, fall in love. You see, once in a while, you see these couples that have this really special weird thing. They're just really together. And even when they can fight and be mad at each other, but there's still this love bond between them. You can feel it. This is indicative of gender twin, natural gender twin relationships. Gender twin relationships are very special. Now, some people's gender twins pass on before they do, and they'd be like in D4 in between lifetimes and not on planet. There's a lot of variations on this. But when we come in as regular human beings with 12-strand patterns, we have our gender twin that we would naturally meet at the end of our cycle of 12, where we'd come together and then we would merge. And usually they end up as romantic couples, because when you combined, there's a lot of people don't realize, sexuality is about combining Kundalini coding and DNA coding. When you unite with someone, you are taking on part of their codes, and they're taking on part of your codes as far as the template scalar wave patterns. With gender twins, the progressive coming together as, well, it was originally the divine coupling. The married couple really kind of symbolized that. They were stimulating rapid activation of each other's gene codes. So they would progressively and synchronistically be able to work their way into ascension together. And they would ascend together and end up in density 2 cycles, or higher if they had higher coding. That was a natural way it was supposed to work. With indigos, it's even more fun. I'm going to part of this, but not all of it, because it gets really wild. But with indigos, in every vector, they come in with a gender twin. There's a gender twin for every indigo in its own time vector. So they're gender twin pairs, right? Not only do they have the one there in that time vector, they have another set in the inner Earth time vector at the same time, and another set on the parallel Earth time vector. There's that extra inner Earth set of manifestations that goes with the indigo imprint. That's the Iani Council that regular 12-strand DNA humans don't have to deal with. The twinning event goes back to the Nibirian dyadic crystal grid. This is one of the nastiest things that was done to this race. Actually, they told me, to me, it was one of the nastiest I've heard of. That means there's a lot more, because they said this was one of the minor things they did to us. Because the incarnational cycles on this planet are, as far as incarnating on the planet, there's a whole set of mathematical relationships that takes place to do that. We come in with our twins, and if the Earth cycles are working normally, we meet our twins at the end of our 12 cycle, and then ascend for regular humans. What they did with the dyadic crystal grid was throw codes in that mismatched and scrambled the timelines just enough where gender twins could not come together. That kept everybody trapped down here, Because if you don't merge with the coding of your gender twin, either here or on the astral, you don't get the final activation where you both become one again to get up to the next level. That's one of the ways they entrapped human souls here, is scrambling the timelines and Earth's grids so the natural gender twin cycles would not come together. And what they did instead was they tried to pair up humans with Anunnaki to continually hybridize, progressively trying to hybridize us out of our 12-strand potential. With the Eoni Council, it had the same effect. But the thing with the Eoni Council is, being an indigo child has some special features. Not only do you not just have 12 strands, you have anywhere from 24 to 48 strands. Now with the human imprint, the simple 12-strand imprint, the DNA templates of the gender twins polarize from D12, well, from the low subharmonics of D12 down, which gives a real separation of individuality feeling between the gender twins with just human form. With the indigo imprint, the Eoni Council imprint, there's polarization in the strands only from D6 down. There's full bonding and total mirroring of the templates of the DNA from strands 7 and up. It creates a not quite full separation from each other that allows them to anchor the Kundalini and the Kirashe and other things that if you're totally separated into polarity, you can't. It also creates, when you separate gender twins, a very, very deep pain inside, a biologically felt ache that doesn't go away. If the other is not where it's supposed to be, it can be felt. We've been living under that since 22,500 BC. What is happening now is very special. They're running the frequencies through the grids, and it begins tonight for those who will come, and it ends on January 1st. That will begin to reprogram some of the scrambled timelines, just enough, and we can do this now, and we'll phase lock it in Kauai. It's going to start putting those natural time cycles back together, de-scrambling the scrambled timelines, which are going to allow the gender twins to come back into each other's vector. But more than that, it's going to accelerate the process. So even humans that are not in an indigo body, that normally wouldn't, because it's not necessarily their last incarnation here, they wouldn't meet them, they're going to accelerate the lines where they will. If their gender twins aren't here and are in the, have crossed over, they will arrange astral interaction with them. If they don't want to have a relationship with their gender twin who is out here, they will still arrange astral field bonding between them. If people are open to the gender twin thing, first of all, you may actually be with yours. There are some people, particularly indigos, who manage to come through and get through and move through the scramble in the timelines where they actually found their gender twin. So if you're part of a married couple and it's a good thing happening, there's a good chance you may have already found yours as in the Eoni Council. That will amplify and get stronger. And whatever bond you have, they told me it'll go this way. There'll be a little clearing of conflict stuff from old patterns, and then there will be an even stronger bond than was ever there before, if you have your twin with you. If you don't, you're one of those rocky relationships that you just know, it's all right for now, but I really have a feeling I'm not supposed to be here forever. It may be the fact that you're still paired with an Anunnaki or a Draconian that you don't belong with. They don't belong with you any more than you belong with them. They can't ascend either that way. Okay? The grids are going to do this on a mass level. They're going to reorder the timelines to start bringing the gender twins back together, both in the Eoni councils and in the general human populations. It's going to cause some chaos, I imagine, in marriages and things that aren't real good. If you're not really with the person you're supposed to be with, you're going to find out fast, probably, because it'll kick up all of this stuff that is disharmonic between you. But if you have, now gender twins, this is where the harmonic versus not harmonic comes into. Gender twins share the same DNA template, one spliced into the magnetic base magnetic, where it's more drawing frequency, which would be female, and the other being its replicate in the base electrical, which would be the male body form. So it's literally, there are men and women on this planet whose DNA templates, the codings in the templates beneath the manifest strands, and which is reflected in the manifest strands, actually have total compatibility. Others have some compatibility. Some have no compatibility. This is where it's kind of funny. You watch science trying to figure out, where does human attraction drive come from? Maybe it's pheromones, you know? Well, pheromones may have a part in the process, but it doesn't start there. Attraction to each other has always been about the DNA template. Our intimate relationships have always been about ascension. And that truth was denied us because of the manipulation that's been here since 22,500 BC and before, some of it. There are some people who will have connection with their gender twin on the astral levels. There are some who will meet them physically and some who are already with them. The reason it's being done is because when you bring gender twins together and begin the fusion of their DNA strand templates, they can hold in each of their bodies 3 times as much energy as either could hold alone. So if they're going to amplify the grid speed to the point where it would basically biologically kill everybody because their bodies can't hold enough frequency, you pair them up with a buddy that has a matching DNA template, and you can hold 3 times the amount of frequency, which A, creates immunity to the grid acceleration, and B, makes you a very powerful resource, if you so choose to serve that way, to anchor higher dimensional Merkaba vehicles. If you're a small gender twin coupling, or it was just the person from this cycle that you were intended to meet, you'll be able to anchor what's called a holophase Merkaba, which is a 6-dimensional Merkaba. A Merkaba is basically an electromagnetic field in the shape of a star tetrahedron that at its core has something called a form constant space. It's a space, a spherical space that forms inside of these electromagnetic currents, spiraling, counter-rotating electromagnetic currents in the form of a star tetrahedron, that creates reality fields. When you create your Merkaba vehicle, you're literally activating things in the body that create this spherical form constant light bubble around you in your auric field that allows you to pass through stargates without frying. Now, when you bring gender twin couples together, they have the ability to rapidly activate their own Merkaba, accelerating their own DNA strand template activation and such. But they have the ability to start bringing in the frequencies depending on what their particular coding. Indigos, you put gender twin indigos together, they can anchor the Kundalini, parts of it anyway, depending on if you have 48 codes, you can anchor the whole darn thing times 3, not just times 1. So people who come together, particularly the Yoni Council, who have that ability to anchor alone, they can anchor the Kundalini. You put them together with their gender twin, they can anchor 3 times the amount of Kundalini frequency. Kundalini frequency coming into the planetary grids will allow something besides not getting fried on a biological level, as far as your twin, being with your gender twin will help this. You may find them popping up in your life. It starts in January 1st it starts, and it's going to move rapidly, I think, because the time is so short, but to the end of the year that we need to get some of this stuff accomplished. But gender twins who are aware that that's what's happening are going to be asked if they're willing to create something called safe zones, where, and it's funny, you don't have to be an intimate couple. You may find your gender twin, and you may be in a relationship that you really value. That will be respected, though you may find yourself compelled to really needing to find a way to work it out. Because there's a real strong biological draw, usually, between gender twins. It's just, really there, which they're trying to repress right now with those crystal grids that we're going to reprogram. Secondly, you'll be able to begin creating safe zones on the planet. This is also needed if we're going to activate Stargate 6 to reclaim Stargates 4 and 5 and get them back under burnout protection. The planet needs to be able to handle that frequency not just the human gene code. If we can build Merkaba sites, which are, we run the Maharic seal, and there's going to be a certain technique that they give us to do this that will be in writing before you leave. It creates a safe zone site where it creates a space. It'll create a Hala phase Merkaba, which is a 6-dimensional Merkaba. That's a plug for 6-dimensional frequency from the stargates to come in and synthesize through so it doesn't hit the grids and just start creating chaos. We need to help create Merkaba safe zones. There are also zones that, within them, they create a form constant within their area. And they'll be getting a lot more information on this as we go along, but this is the basic concept of what they're wanting us to do if we're willing to help. Wherever we are, we can learn to run the technique just to anchor and say, okay, yeah, I'll anchor one here, anywhere you want. Every step I take, let me anchor one, go ahead. You can have fun with this. It helps your system, because every time you assist in anchoring a Merkaba, it assists in accelerating a bit of your own DNA template and your own spiritual integration process. Right. But yes, you can pass it on with your mate. In fact, one of the strongest ways to pass on activations is in the combining, when mates combined, right, because your field's open to each other. Right. Okay? This has been a tactic that's been being used to mess up the DNA code of a lot of the Iani Council that aren't awakened yet. They're trying to pair them with Draconians, or they're trying to pair them with Anunnaki. And the sad thing is, the people that have the Draconian and Anunnaki codes don't know it. Their matrices don't tell them that. They just think they're regular humans like anybody else. But they happen to be used, they guide them into relationships, just when indigos are trying to awaken, usually. Right. And they try to hijack them. And if they get them involved sexually and get those fields open, they start to contaminate the indigo's DNA template. Yeah. All right, so this has been going on all through the New Age movement, but it's been going on all through human history since at least 22,500 BC, actually, but it's been upstepped lately. So yes, you can use that principle in reverse for good things. Right. You can bring the frequencies, Maharic frequencies, into your field and pass them on to your mates or to your lovers. You can even pass them on to a smaller degree in a hug to someone. Mm-hmm. But you always ask first. If you can't ask them directly because you have to explain a billion things they're not going to understand, put out a call to their own avatar level and say, is it okay if I do this? Because you don't put anything in anybody's field without asking permission. And if they can't answer you here because they don't have the knowledge base to where your words are going to make sense, you do have the right to, from your avatar level, bring in that silver level of yourself, that pale silver avatar self, and ask your avatar level to ask their avatar level if it is all right that you bring this frequency to them. And you'll get a feeling. I mean, if you have direct, open communication, you'll get a yes or no, or maybe, or not today, maybe next week. But if it's a no at that moment, you'll get a feeling, not right to do right now. There's something that doesn't feel right, that I get a feeling that I'm not supposed to. But usually, the answer will be yes, unless they're not ready to hold whatever frequency. Okay? So you can use the regular twinning effect to help. Think about the twinning for a while, though, and how neat. Because I don't want everybody to leave here on, oh my God, it's that bad. Yuck. We have all this work to do, and how dare they do that? They're not very nice. That's not a good vibe to send people away on, and I don't want to do that. There's one aspect of this that is very, very joyful, and that has to do with the twinning. Be it your twin, your gender twin, or the closest match they can possibly find. Once in a while you'll have a gender twin that's off someplace else, like literally in another universe, that is not going to be able to bring it through, but that's not too many, but some are like that. You will still be assigned with a buddy, either in the astral, if that's where you want it, or in the physical. They'll bring someone into your life that you have the closest DNA template match to. What that means is, you know how men and women tend to just have this thing sometimes, or they have a real hard time understanding each other, this like gender barrier thing? That is very, very much less, particularly in indigo children, gender twinnings, or even close matches. So that's something to look forward to. There is one more thing. I'm glad I came back to this that I didn't say, that I need to say. When we're talking about the astral, We're talking about the astral plane, or the D4 level, where you can take your astral body, and there's a lot of people. It's getting really popular in the New Age movement to have all these wonderful astral affairs with beings from all over the place. I met a lady who likes to sleep with Dracos because they're really good in bed. That's what she talks about. Astral relationships with draconian hybrids, great. There's others that are really, really very enamored by the pretty, pretty Palladian Nibiruans, who look so angelic and are usually gorgeous. Well, at least that's how they present themselves. Once upon a time, astral affairs were fine. When you're in a time like this, they're the most dangerous thing you can do. When you're sent, if you end up for some reason that your gender twin is not in a physical body, or you just aren't open to having that quite in the physical, where you'd be more comfortable with an astral relationship, there's one thing that will not, absolutely not, be occurring in the astral relationships. They will not turn into what feel like and look like sexual affairs there. They may end up here as sexual bonding and committed relationships and things, but because right now the tactic of sending in wonderful astral lovers to seduce humans is being used by both Draconian and Anunnaki forces for one reason. You take your astral body out, you go and have an affair, it's the same darn thing as linking your fields sexually here with someone here. They're doing code saturation of the DNA template, and people are falling for it. There's articles popping up even in like the Inquirer and the Sun papers now about beautiful aliens coming and having romantic affairs with humans, and taking them out of body and all this. This is even hitting like the Sun now. When you look at the Sun type tabloids, these are the ones that tell you little info bites on what's really going on, but it's all presented as fiction, of course. No, everybody knows you don't believe those stories, right? Be aware that even though the tactic used to be used in the Ancient of Days, when it was safe to use it, where when your gender twin would meet you on the astral, you could have intimacy there that could even hit levels that the physical body couldn't even attain. That will not be used by guardians from this point forth, because there's other ways to bond the fields that do not engage the full, what appears to be sexual interaction on D4. There are ways to naturally bond the fields, and your gender twin and you will be able to do that, where somebody infiltrating your field would have to do different types of infiltration to try to get in, because they don't have the DNA compatibility. But if they can get you to willingly open your fields by having astral sexual encounter, easy, got one. It's being used all the time. So I just want you to know that I've said there may be gender twins approaching you in the astral level, or guides or something approaching you telling you about gender twins. If any of them that appear to you or come to you in the astral try to get you into a sexual astral liaison, reject it immediately. If it's your gender twin, it won't do it that way, and it won't go into that, just so you won't be tricked. Okay? It's important.